This is my paint room, and it looks like a mess. And that's because it actually is a mess right now. It's part of my creative process, and right now I'm groping and struggling to find the palette that I want. I have this vision in my head for what I'm trying to achieve, and I'm trying to come up with a set of colors that will satisfy that vision. In my art classes and just oil painting on my own, I love painting landscapes. All the colors and everything's in front of me out there. And then if I'm doing portraits in a classroom, or I'm doing still life in a classroom, for instance, the colors are in front of me and it's straightforward. But every time I do a new abstract, I want a new color scheme to go with whatever's appropriate for that abstract that I'm trying to create, this vision in my head. Like the cappuccino painting came from looking at the cream in a coffee, a round cup of cappuccino, and I was fascinated by that swirling motion. Well, those are tans and cream colors, and the actual painting ended up with a totally different color scheme. So where did that come from? I don't know. It came from in this room just experimenting and playing around with colors, and then coming up with a palette of progressive colors for that particular painting. And in that case, I threw in some pink, which really made the painting come to life. And so you have all this freedom without restrictions, but that freedom really makes it much more difficult to figure out where you want to go with it. And then even when you have that direction of where you want to go with it, you still have to come up with this family of 6, 8, 10, 12, 20 or more colors to satisfy this new vision that you're trying to develop. And as you go through developing this new palette, you have to realize that it's going to shift many, many times through iterations in this room, and then the robot painting stuff, and then coming back in here and evolving and refining it. And this goes on actually for weeks, back and forth, back and forth. Acrylic paints allow me to explore this vast range of possibilities, but they do have a few inherent problems. One is that when you mix these acrylic paints and you put it down on a canvas, it dries much darker than what you start with here. So what you mix is not what you get in the end. Unlike oil paints, oil paint dries the same color as when it's wet on your palette when you mix it. And then the perception of the color is going to change on you depending on the type of lighting you use. These studios all have north light, and so you're going to get one impression of the color. But then if you hang it on a wall with halogen light, the perception is totally different. The end product is the gallery, which uses halogen bulbs. So therefore, I have to use halogens where I mix the color, and then I also have halogens shining down on the robot. I have the same consistent lighting through all three spaces. Even though I have as many colors as I do, I don't recall ever using a color straight out of its container as it is. It seems like I'm always shifting colors a little bit by adding something to something, or maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 to get the exact hue, chroma, value, etc. that I want. So value is dark to light, so it might be coming out of the jar too light or too dark, so I have to add another color to shift it. And then chroma is intensity of the color, so I might want to shift that. And then I might just want to shift the color, that's the hue. Instead of having an orange red, I might want to have a yellow orange red or something like that. Or instead of having a red red, I might want to have a little blue in there to shift it more toward the purple side. So you're always shifting colors, and that's just the nature of the artistic process as an artist, where you don't shrug and you just say that's good enough. You're trying to fulfill that vision you have in your head. Over the years, I'm really upgrading my skills at color, use of color, mixing color, the subtleties of color. The reason this table is so messy is I'm going where I've never gone before by a big leap, and it's really, really challenging me. All the paints in these jars are too thick for the robot and for a normal artist, and so you add a medium to thin it down to say the consistency of mustard or mayonnaise. I want the paint to be kind of self-leveling so that as I dip, I know where the paint level is because of my sensor. However, there's sometimes when, let's say I'm painting something in the background of a painting, I might want that paint to be a little bit thinner. And then on the other times, like the front layers of the cloud in Linda's Meditation Upon Death, I want that paint to be thicker, to have what we call impasto. And the Franz Kline painting is that way, and what I call my brown curve painting is that way. Once in a while, a visitor will say, well, have you ever thought of using an airbrush, or have you ever thought of using watercolor? And those are nice questions and polite questions. To me, the brushstroke is absolutely the heart and soul of painting. When you go to the major art museums in Europe, whether it's London, Paris, Madrid, it doesn't matter. You study the masters and you see the brushwork and you just fall in love. As I was taking art classes and studying under David Lafell, maybe the greatest portrait still life painter in the country, and along with him, Richard Schmidt, you watch them paint, and the brushstroke is indeed the heart and soul. And then you go and you look at a Turner a seascape in a storm, and you just fall in love with the brushstrokes, or Sorolla or Zorn. You look at the thickness and the richness of the brushwork, and that can only happen with the paint and the medium and the application of the brush and how much paint's on the brush and the pressure of the brush going across the canvas and how it's lifted off. And then the paint next to it and the paint on top of it. To me, that's just beauty. And so it'll always be that the brushstroke is the heart and soul. And the paint then supports that brushstroke. It's so critical to have the right kind of paint, the right color, and the right application of the paint to get that beauty. If you think of Monet, you think of all that texture and the brushwork. And then if you look at a Van Gogh, you think of his brushwork. Now, if you take the brushwork out of those two paintings, out of Monet's and out of Van Gogh's, you lose everything. The brushstroke and this paint go so hand in hand together. And that's the magic, and that's the creative process that I crave for and love. I'm evolving myself along my journey of Fusioneering, and then likewise, the robot and I evolved together for new kinds of brushstrokes. This new painting, I have a whole new set of brushstrokes. I've done like 51 runs now developing this brushwork for this new painting, and then I take notes on each run and then change the parameters in the software and do another one. This room is a love-hate relationship. I mean, I'm looking at these colors and I love them, but I tell you, it's a hate relationship when I'm not getting to where I want to get. But once I get there, then I'm back to normal.